I think you cover the Redskins when Bugles was there? Certainly with Gibbs, part two, you were around, right?
Yeah, part two, not part one.
Right, right. So we only know Bugles really from afar, and my impression was, man, just what a fun, dynamic personality. And when I saw that news, it just as a Redskins fan, it kind of hits you in the gut. It's kind of weird because an assistant coach, you don't necessarily feel that way, but there's just a fondness that people seem to have had for him. Covering him, did you feel the same way?
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was a lot of fun to cover
Yeah.
because, to be honest, he was always, you know, upbeat and
Mm-hmm.
very outgoing and colorful. And it's funny because there was one point where I remember, just like you're talking outside the locker room, a group of reporters with Bugel. And after a while, sometimes you put your recorder down or whatever because like he's going on and on and on and it's good stuff. But the thing with him is you never knew when he was going to say something that was just like, oh, you needed to have that on tape. And as a reporter, you can still write down. But Bram Weinstein, when he was covering him for the team,
Mm-hmm.
I think he had turned his recorder off, and Bug starts talking about, he's telling the dirt bags not, to take their pink panties off when they go in the meeting room because he's going to get on them or something like that. And so Bram and I, we had this little joke like, you have to keep it going. Like, who's going to get the pink panty moment where you don't get the quote because you turn your recorder off? So that's what he was like. I mean, before practice, I just remember him always walking laps around Redskins Park, the field, and all that for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He just was always into it. And so, yes, he was a fun guy to cover, absolutely.
Was he the guy that Gibbs kind of leaned on?
Yes, and I think he clearly trusted him. I don't know that. Well, I think Gibbs was going to come back, but I think he knew that Bugel wanted to come back. I don't. The thing I would always wonder is would Gibbs have really wanted to return if Bugel didn't want to come back to coaching?
Right.
Just because I think he meant that much to him, and you saw the success they had. And one of the things I tweeted yesterday on this is one of the things that Gibbs deserves credit for. People always like, when you look at coaches, it's always like, well, what system does he run? His X's and O's, and what kind of play caller is he? To me, that's kind of all very secondary to what Gibbs was able to do, which is get guys like Bugel on his staff. And it makes the team better, makes him better as a coach. So, yes, I think he did. And yes, so I think he absolutely did.
John, in the first go-around, was Bugles the type of guy who would be welcomed in by the offensive line if they went out for a beer, like post-practice? Or did he kind of still keep his distance, even though he's clearly close with them? But was it to the point of almost friendship? Do you know that dynamic?
Well, as far as like I said, I wasn't there for that stuff. But just, what I know is the adoration those guys have for him. So I don't know that he's going to go out and have a beer with them because I think, he's the kind of guy you're going to respect what your standing is. He is their coach. He's not their friend because he's going to get on them. It's not like he's just sitting there holding his hand during practice. He's getting on them too. So a good coach isn't going to go out and pal around with his players like that. Now, if you're out and you see him, you buy him a beer, but but I know like that when he left, there was a lot of genuine emotion left in the first time to go coach the Cardinals. So a lot of genuine emotion for those players, and you can still hear it when you talk to them today. And I think it's, I would say it's more so than when he was here the second time, and part of that is the success they had, but part of that was they all kind of grew up together. And I think that formed a bond that I think it seems like is still around even now and through his death.
You know what, John, though, looking at the numbers, they had success at least running the football during that second go-round.
Yes, they did. I mean, yes, absolutely they did. And I mean, they didn't have much success throwing the ball. Yeah, they had, I think it's kind of remarkable what they did because they didn't have the threat of a passing game. And when Clinton Portis is in the game, or not just in the game, but going into those games, the other teams knew they had to stop him. That was it. So the amount of 8-man boxes that guy faced was tremendous, and they still had success doing it. It wasn't that they didn't have success. I'm just talking about the intense bond between the line and the coach. It's definitely felt stronger in the first time because, again, I think those players grew up with him. Right. And I just think it forms a different bond. But they absolutely had success. And I always felt like Portis, you try to imagine what Portis's numbers would have been like had they had the threat of a pass game as well. And because they did. That was the only way they were going to really win was with that run game.
Why do you think he never really had success as a head coach? Do you have a guess?
I don't know. And again, I think a lot of, like I said, a lot of coaching, I think, is just, first of all, when you're around him, he does feel like he's more of an assistant just based on the personality and all that. And I don't even know what that necessarily means. It's just kind of what you feel. But you also have to work for the right organization, too. And he went to the Cardinals at a time which they weren't exactly good.
Right.
As an organization. So that matters. And what would Joe Gibbs have been like had he gone somewhere where you didn't have Bobby Beathard as a GM and an owner like Jack Kent Cooke? Do you have the same level of success? Because it does slow down. And I think we've seen that here. So I don't know how much that was part of it. I never fully examined that, but that's always a contributing factor. And then again, it's like, who are you surrounding yourself with? And I don't know, I don't remember the ins and outs of who he had coaching on his staff and with the Cardinals, but that always matters. So I don't have a good answer for that, but I do know that, and Gibbs would say it too, is like organizations win. That's why when you look at what the success Gibbs has had in NASCAR as well, it starts at the top. That guy knows how to get the right people around him, and not everybody does. It's not an easy thing, and but again, the Cardinals organization at that time was not very good. And Bugel actually, by the last year, I think they were 500, and seemed to be going in a good direction, and he still got let go.
We were talking about the Newton news, and it makes sense to me. I think all of us thought this was where maybe this would go, and it never did. And so we were kind of scratching our heads. And when they kept saying they had a plan, I kept thinking to myself, it can't be Stidham, or however you say the guy's name. It can't be that guy. Now it makes sense. This was the plan, in my opinion.
Yes, and I think I agree with you. And just reading some people who cover the league, as a whole, one of the things, there's a couple of things that jump out with Belichick is that, coaches like that always remember the guys who play well against them, and not just play well, but the problems they pose for a defense in this case. And because of Cam's multi-dimensional skills, I think you can look at that. He had success against the Patriots. There were only a few games, but he had success against them. And then you look at how do the Patriots use their guys. And very few teams use, I think, guys as well as New England does, and tapping into everything that they do well. And so I think that's where I think the fun part will be to see how they use him, because they, Josh McDaniels has been very creative. Now you can do that when you have Brady running the show because you can implement different things, but I would expect to see that a similar level of creativity using a guy like Cam Newton, because he can do so much. And especially if that shoulder is fine, then it could be a real interesting thing to watch this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by the way, I want to correct myself. We were talking about the odds of the Patriots winning the division. It's about even money. They're 10-1 to win the AFC. Trappy. So I said 10-1 to win the division. That was clearly wrong. They're even money. But Eric was talking about the plan. It's fortunate for them that Cam Newton passed these physicals on the foot and the shoulder. Because if he didn't pass those physicals, the plan would probably just to stick with Stidham. That's and unless they had someone else, another veteran they had in mind. But if it doesn't pass those physicals, then you're stuck with Stidham, and who knows how that would work out.
Yeah, who knows? And, the funny thing is the assumption was, well, it's the Patriots, they'll just get it right. But it's different. You can surround guys with a Tom Brady who you can get it right with because you have Brady making it work. It's real hard to do that, at the quarterback position. If that guy can't play, then that eventually gets exposed. And you can do things, of course, to mitigate, but it's still hard. So I don't know what the plan would have been, we all know how Belichick operates, and clearly he would like to show that he can do it without Brady. But I have a feeling that you're right. I have a feeling that the plan for a while had been to make, see where Stidham is at through the spring. Now, of course, you couldn't see it on the field, but then also keep your eye on Cam Newton. And, it seemed like a lot of people who cover the league kind of always hinted at, not so much hinted at that, but would project that or, discuss that, because I'm sure they're hearing from a lot of people like that is a team to watch and all this. What I know is that, this team wasn't interested in him, but he does make sense for the Patriots.
Talking to John Keim, covers the Redskins for ESPN.com. One of the hypotheticals we were kicking around last week, and I want your take on it, is who would lead the Redskins in rushing attempts this year? If you had to put your money on the table, who are you betting on?
Well, if I know the guy's going to be healthy, then it's
well.
Darius
No,
Geis.
that makes it too easy.
Right.
Wow, that's
I know.
easy
That's
to bet on Geis. Are you willing to actually bet on Geis?
I think that's a hard one because we just haven't seen him do it for more than 5 or 6 games.
Right.
So I think the next option is Adrian Peterson,
which is amazing.
It is, and I think the hard part there is to know. Here's the other problem with it. I had to answer a similar question for ESPN. We did something. I think it was like the fantasy football question. It was pretty much like that. Like who's gonna be the guy? And I had pretty much the same answer because when you look at the list, like Bryce Love, I'm not gonna count on him, right?
No, how could you? I've never seen that guy in a Redskins jersey ever, not once,
and
never.
I don't know that, and I don't.
It's like Bigfoot.
I don't know that. Right, and I don't know that we will. So, if he is, it's a nice bonus, but, who knows? Geis injuries, Peterson age. Can he do that? Like, can he do this for a third straight year, right? And then it's like but what we don't know is style of the offense. What does Scott Turner want to do? Is he, if you want guys with more multidimensional skills, well, then it's Geis and it's Gibson, and then, like, J.D. McKissick will be the third down back. Gibson's interesting, though, but you can't put your money on him because while he's going to play running back, he's never done it full time at certainly not at this level. So it's really hard. And I don't know that Peyton Barber, is going to be, the answer there. But I think the hard thing with Peterson is if you want the multidimensional stuff in this sort of system, he is more of he's just a first and second down guy who can catch the swing pass and all that. And certainly, screens and whatever. But if you want guys who threaten in multiple ways, that's Gibson, and even Geis can do that. And J.D. McKissick, again, as a third down back. But so that's a long answer to say I have no idea.
John, I feel bad for Geis. He seems like a super nice kid, and he bristled. I can't remember if it was last season or in training camp when the injury-prone label was attached to him. And now anytime anybody brings him up, all they talk about is the fact that he can't stay on the field.
Right.
It's topic one.
Yeah, it is, and there's only one way to change that. You have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like we've seen the workout videos. I don't think anybody doubts that the kid. You look at him, he's obviously in very good shape, and he's doing really good things out there. He's had some issues where if there's any sort of freakish hit at all or an awkward hit, it seems to result in a negative for him, and it's unfortunate because the kid clearly has a lot of talent and could help this team. I mean, he can help you, and he can help you multiple. He can help you as a pass catcher. He can help you in protection, and he's a dynamic runner. So it is unfortunate, but there is, the history is what it is. That's 3 knee injuries in 2 years. I mean, then he had the one in college, and there were teams that were concerned coming out about that. So. Again, if you want to show that you're durable, there is only one way to do it. It's not you can't get mad at people who say it because you have to go prove it. It doesn't mean you can't, but it's what you have to do. And so I think these guys would be thrilled if he could change that narrative.
John, where are we in terms of the calendar here, assuming that it's full steam ahead and we're just going to plow through and guys are going to test positive and they're going to go into their protocol and then they're going to go the next man up? Assuming that's kind of how they're going to handle this, do they have a start date when anybody could start showing up and, like, the team is organizing stuff, not just, 3 guys over here in one corner?
July 28th is the date. So that, and I think some teams can go like with the rookies if they want July 21st, but July 28th is when full teams will be coming.
Okay.
So, and who the heck knows how this is going to work? I mean, there's still stuff that the NFL has to decide, and they're deciding with teams as far as protocols and and guidelines and even as far as how many media can go watch a practice, et cetera, how they're going to do press conferences, how they're going to handle meeting rooms. I mean, the Redskins have a small facility. How are they going to be able to accommodate, what the NFL guidelines are at that building? And you're going to have to tap into the only resource you have out there, which is extra land, and, using tents outside probably for meeting rooms. It's just going to be crazy. And it's funny because it's a sport that relies on habits, and this is what you always do because you can go to training camp. You did this last year. At the same time next year, you'll be doing the same thing. And this year, it's going to be a lot of who can adapt on the fly. Because that'll be a big determining factor. But that's a date, and so we'll see what happens.
Appreciate the time, John.
Thank you,
Thank
buddy.
you, JK.